Now, South African National Road Agency Limited, that's SANRAL, has lost its bid to toll the Cape Winelands route. The Supreme Court of Appeals has ruled in favor of the city of Cape Town, and SANRAL wanted to toll the N1 and N2 highways. Last year, the Western Cape High Court reviewed and set aside approvals that would enable SANRAL to toll parts of the two highways. The road agency appealed the judgment and the city defended its position. The Supreme Court of Appeals dismissed SANRAL's application to appeal against the refusal to admit further affidavits, and the city of Cape Town argued that according to the SANRAL Act, only the SANRAL board can declare a toll road. The board allegedly did not do this. Now, the Supreme Court of Appeals dismissed SANRAL's application with costs. And joining us in studio is OUTA's Director for Legal Affairs, Ivan Harasioman. Hello, Ivan. Good to have you. I see you gloating.
It's a great day for South Africans, and we've been vindicated to a certain degree, and the city of Cape Town have been vindicated. And all the people and the parties who are angry about tolls have been vindicated, because what Justice Nafsa said today is, SANRAL, you were wrong all along.
Yeah. And is this the end of the argument now, that SANRAL cannot further appeal, or that even if the board were to declare the N1 and N2 as a toll road and pursue putting gantry, toll theirs, is this the end of it?
They have two options. They can either approach the Constitutional Court and try and fight it out there. Highly unlikely that they would be successful. The judgment is sound, it's well reasoned. I don't think they'd be successful. Or they can start the whole process, public participation, likely with the outdated environmental impact assessment. That would need some updating. So it would be a lot of work. Theoretically, yes. Practically, I have my doubts.
Yeah. Well, was this an own goal for SANRAL, or was it more the pressure from OUTA and other organizations and motorists saying enough is enough, we don't want the tolls?
I think a bit of both. When it gets to court and when it gets to the Supreme Court of Appeal, they sit and look at the facts, and they sit and look, did you comply with the statutory prescripts in your attempt to declare this road a toll road? And if you didn't, I mean, it's cold facts. You're wrong.
So procedurally, SANRAL were non-compliant, as opposed to that OUTA had a strong case against the tolls in the Western Cape, if I'm understanding you.
No, look, the case in the Western Cape was brought by the city of Cape Town. The case against OUTA, or the case in Gauteng, the test case process, still has to unveil. But this is a very, very charming court judgment for us.
Yeah. No, and I mean, speaking of that, we also had Vusimona saying that in terms of the announcements to motorists that it was premature. Where do we stand with the protection of motorists, if you will, from harassment, and what are the latest developments?
Look, motorists have formed a united resistance against the scheme, and I mean, have you ever seen people stand together under one umbrella in the way they have in their united resistance against e-tolls? I don't think so. So he still probably has some things to think about, but the Gauteng motorists and the motorists in Cape do not.
Yeah. So what is the impact of this judgment on the case against e-tolls in Gauteng?
Well, it was in exactly the same period, late 2007 going on to September 2008. Remember, the findings said the board didn't sit and consider this decision properly. Sitting and not being able to consider it properly, you can't refer it to the minister and ask the minister to consider something you haven't considered properly. And the minister misunderstood what his job was in the circumstances. He thought it was a checklist exercise, tick off. They sent out a newspaper article, X, Y, and Z. It's now been found in the Supreme Court of Appeal that this is wrong. Now, the same thing happened in Gauteng, and with a collateral review, I think SANRAL might just come short.
Okay, so if this sets a precedent, then what are we likely to see with the Gauteng case?
We're just hoping sense will prevail, and they'd take down the gantries and let people go to their places of work, their places of worship, malls and jewels, without having to pay for that. But if not, and they're going to try and force e-toll liability, They're probably going to be in court with the e-toll summonses going around, and we're hopeful that they will lose and that Gauteng motorists will win.
Yeah, and the economical or financial impact on the city and the fiscus, obviously there's investment made in the infrastructure. Somehow, I'm sure they will recover that money, be it in taxes or any other way. So there is no way of telling what SANRAL is going to do next.
They must make a decision on which policy intervention would work best to recoup the monies, to build the roads, to build the infrastructure. But the method of getting there was wrong. It was administratively wrong. It didn't take into account the views of the public, and it was done in a manner which rendered it unlawful, and that's bad.
Yeah. But I mean, where did the disjoint take place? I mean, it wasn't just about the public consultations. I think it had to do more with whether, the levies, the tax levies and other money is not being spent adequately. Where do you think the disjoint started?
Look, I think the resistance against e-tolls comes from a general resistance to pay for something where you feel you have already paid. That's, in one sense, what a lot of Gauteng motorists felt. In another sense, people really felt that the failure to consult them, they were almost ambushed by this scheme, and it was a copy and paste from other countries that they tried to put down here, and they didn't really think it through in the way, not the kind of thinking required to pull this off. And they came short, and it's clear in the court judgment that they really didn't sit and think about it.
Ivan, we're going to leave it there, and thanks indeed for coming in. That's Ivan Hersey-Oman. He's the Director for Legal Affairs at the organization Outdoing Tax Abuse. And that's a business for this evening. And thanks again for joining us. For myself and the crew, be abundantly blessed.